Welcome to the June 2014 instalment of the Retro News Roundup, and to start this episode is an interesting attempt to make a short live-action film out of the popular platformer Another World. It's less than 4 minutes long, so you should probably check it out. The director has hinted that a full-length version of the film may be attempted at some point too. Next, a book looking to detail the story of publisher and developer US Gold was successfully funded through Kickstarter in May. The book is aptly titled A History of US Gold, and looks at the British-based company's successes through the 80s and 90s until it was bought by Eidos in 1996. Although the Kickstarter's target of £15,000 has been reached, don't worry, you can still pre-order a copy for £25 up until the 13th of June. Finally, in somewhat less educational news, it turns out you can now buy a drinking flask in the shape of an NES cart, and a glitch was also uncovered in Super Mario Bros. 3 that makes it possible to complete it in under 3 minutes. To open this section there was, as usual, a barrage of ports on Nintendo systems. First, the 3DS's eShop, which saw NES titles Galaga, Clu Clu Land, Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, and the mysterious Murasami Castle. It also got Game Boy Color Classic Mario Golf. The Wii U's eShop, on the other hand, saw ports of NES games Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest and Volleyball, as well as Game Boy Advance title Klonoa Empire of Dreams. Next up are Sony's consoles, with a high-definition remake of Car Battle 'em Up Cell Damage, released for the PlayStation 4, PS Vita and PlayStation 3, available to download through PSN. The same service saw R-Type Dimensions and Resident Evil Code Veronica X released for the PS3. Then there was a physical release in the form of the God of War collection for the PS Vita. It was a busy month for iOS devices too, as they saw a host of retro revivals including a HD remake of Super Frog, a port of PlayStation 2 RPG Dragon Quest VIII, a re-release of 1992 PC horror title Alone in the Dark, and some extra content made available for Pac-Man. Moving on, Final Fantasy III came out on PC via Steam, and Half-Life 2 and Portal were brought onto the Nvidia Shield. To round off this section though, the original creator of Night Trap, James Riley, has said that the notorious Sega CD FMV title will be re-released at some point. He gave this announcement through a post on the Night Trap Facebook group, but any further details are not available at this time. On a similar note, remakes of the Game Boy Advance titles Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were announced, and will come to the 3DS in November. First up was the news that Hyperkin's RetroN 5 system, which plays NES, SNES, Game Boy Advance, Mega Drive and Famicom games, is set to have its full release on the 6th of June. The system will set you back $139.99 if bought from Hyperkin directly. Second is that pre-orders have opened for the Analog NT, which is basically an NES boasting RGB and HDMI outputs, multi-region compatibility and a very stylish look. It'll be released sometime this summer, and the most basic version of the system will cost you a somewhat staggering $499. Third in this section is that the British microcomputer company Jupiter Ace's unsold stock, software and name went up for auction in May, although it seems that no one was willing to start the bidding at £10,000. Unless the deal was done away from eBay, of course. Next, a Moband adapter for the Dreamcast was revealed to be in the works. But what does it do, I hear you ask? Well, it's basically a cheaper way to get your Sega Dreamcast online, especially with the official broadband adapter being so hard to get a hold of nowadays. No release date has been set for the accessory yet though, as it looks like there's still a lot of work to be done on it. Last up for this section, Nintendo announced an adapter that will allow you to play Super Smash Bros. For Wii U with the GameCube controller. Does this count as retro news? Ah well, it's in here anyway. First up in the Homebrew section this month is the release of Millionaire-Z for the NES, a video game take on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Fortunately, a virtual Chris Tarrant does not appear to be involved. Next comes two platformers for the ZX Spectrum, Ninja Jar and a port of Windows titles L'Abbé d'Amour. The Commodore 64 also saw two homebrew releases, the first being an updated version of Commando, called Commando Arcade, and the second being adventure game Darkness. The Bob de Crescenzo collection, a 30th anniversary multi-cart for the Atari 7800, also came out in May, and celebrates the console being around for 3 decades. The games included Armour Attack 2, Crazy Bricks, Failsafe, Meteor Shower, Mooncrester, Pac-Man Collection, Scramble, and Space Invaders. Next, this month's best homebrew hack goes to Super SpongeBob Kart, which is a slightly amusing take on the SNES's Super Mario Kart. There was a host of upcoming homebrew announced in May too. Pre-orders are now being taken for Commodore Amiga adventure Tales of Gorluth, for example, and Dreamcast first-person shooter Hypertension Harmony of Darkness was revealed and is to be released later this year. Footage of upcoming NES titles Leisure Suit Larry and Sydney Hunter and the Mayans' Revenge was also released online in May. And finally, an unofficial port of Rick Dangerous for the SNES looks to be in the works. 3 fan translations this month, and conveniently, they're all for NES titles. They include the unlicensed title Dragon Knife, platformer Don Doco Don 2, and Golf Club Birdie Rush. That's all for this episode then, but please note that you can find links to almost everything mentioned in this video's description. As always, please let me know if there's anything I missed in the comments section below, and thanks for watching.
There is more here than usual.